I will show you how to create a day and night effect for your game, complete with a time manager and a UI for the player to interact with. So let's start by creating a new day and night UI panel. So we'll go Scene, New Scene, and then choose the User Interface option, and then just press F2 to rename that, and we'll call it Day and Night Panel. And then let's save that scene. So go to Scenes, and in the UI folder, we'll just save the panel here. Click Save. And then on the Day and Night panel, scroll down, and on the Theme option here, just go and click Load, and then load the Game UI Theme resource. Click Open, and then just hop over to our 2D view. Then in the Theme option, just click to open the theme. And then let's add a new style type. So we'll click the plus button here and call this Day and Night Counter Panel, and click Add Type. And then we'll choose this option here and then just change the base type. And then search for Panel Container and then set that base type. Now that we've set our theme on the root node, let's add another child node and search for Panel Container. Choose this option and then click Create. And then in the Panel Container, just scroll down, and for type variation, let's just set that. So click the Edit button here and type Day and Night Counter Panel, and that will set the style. We click the tick. Then let's head back to the theme by clicking the root node and then choose the theme option here. Then what we want to do is to update the panel. And then for the panel option, click the plus button and then click empty, and we want a new style box texture and click that. And then for the texture, say new atlas texture and then open that resource. Then go to the game assets folder, and in the UI folder, bring over the basic UI sprites and just drop that into the atlas property, and then click edit region. And zoom in on the asset, and we want to take this selection here. So let's just choose Pixel Snap and just draw a box around this asset here. So we just want this top half here, and then click close. We'll just close the atlas texture down, and then we have another edit region under sub-region. So just click edit that region. And then with Pixel Snap selected, just bring in these bars here. And as you can see, it starts to update our UI control. Bring the next bar in until we frame our panel, and then click close. We just zoom in, we can now see we've got our panel here. So for Panel Container, let's just rename that panel and call it Day Panel. And then let's add another child node and search for Margin Container. Add another child node and search for Label. In the label, just type Day 0 for now. And this just puts in some text for us for the meantime. Now let's just adjust the margin container a little bit more, because it's taking the 10 pixels automatically from our theme, which we've defined earlier here. So back on margin container, let's override those margins. So we say margin left, top, right, and bottom, and then set 3 pixels for each. This just improves the margin around our text for this particular panel. Let's just head back to the theme, and let's now style our label. So click the plus button here to add a new style type, and we'll call this Day and Night Label. For the base type, let's just click the plus button again and choose Label as our base type, and then just set that base type. Then click the option here for our fonts file, and then let's add a different font. So let's just override that item, and then let's set the fonts file here. So if you go back to our game folder under assets, and then just into the UI folder, we've already set some fonts in there. So now let's add a new font. So head back over to the Sproutlands UI pack, and in the basic pack, there is a fonts folder which contains a pixel font in there. So we're going to use this font for our day and night label. So just click and drag that over, and I'll be leaving the link in the description for the UI pack. Once we have the font, we can then drag and drop that into our font on our theme. So just click and drag the font into our theme here, and then click back on label and just scroll down until you get to theme. And for the theme variation, let's just edit that and type Day and Night Label, and let's just accept that. So as you can see, the font has now been updated on our label. let's just make an adjustment to our font size. So just click back on the root node and then get to the theme and choose this option with our day and night label chosen here. And then just change the font size. So let's just click the plus button and then just let's up the font size until we get better clarity. So if we keep going further, you'll see that it goes blurred. And this is because the font has a specific size. Now let's just adjust the size of the day panel. Scroll down till we get to transform and size and just change the Y to 26. And this will just adjust it to make it fit a little bit better with our text. Then click the day panel and let's just duplicate this panel. F2 and rename this to be time panel. Then click the down arrow key just to adjust the new position of our time panel. Then in the label, just write a time in there. So we'll use 12 o'clock. And then let's adjust the width of the panel as well. So let's just go back to day panel. And let's make the size on our X axis 80. And we'll do the same for our time panel as well. Then let's align the text in our label. So click label and then just click shrink center and then just do vertical center as well. And then for the label in the time panel, let's just do the same. So we'll just click this option here and then horizontal alignment shrink center and vertical alignment shrink center as well. We are going to add 3 buttons to our day and night panel, which will allow the player to artificially speed up the time. So we'll add a normal speed, a faster speed and a cheater speed. So click on the day and night panel and add a child node and search for control and add a control node. Add another child node and search for button and add a button node. Let's just rename the button node and call this normal speed button. Then click on the control and let's just reposition this control. So under transform position and Y, let's just click in there and then just modify this. So I'm just using the arrow key to move that down and just going to position the button underneath the time panel. Then let's go to our theme and let's just add a new style type in our theme. So click the plus button and call this day and night button and just add this new type. And then just click this option here to set the base type and search for button and then just set that base type. So before we style the button, let's just now go back to the normal speed button option here and scroll down until we get to our theme and then type variation, just let's edit that. And let's just write day and night button and that's the style and just accept that. Then head back to the theme and choose the styles option and then scroll down to the normal style and click the plus button, then click empty and choose new style box texture. Click on the style box texture and in the texture let's create a new atlas texture and open that. And then back in the assets and UI folder, let's bring over the basic UI sprites and just open that. And then when we get to region, choose edit region, just zoom out and we are going to choose this section of sprites here. So choose auto slice and pick this option here and choose close and scroll up and just collapse the atlas texture and scroll back down to sub region and choose edit region. Let's just scroll in and then change snap mode back to pixel snap and just bring in the bars to frame the button. Once the button is framed, then just click close. And as you can see, we now have the button style here. Now click the button and let's just resize this button. So if we go to the transform and size, for X, use the value 26 and for Y, use the value 18. Then click back on our theme and let's now style the other properties here. So for normal, right click the style box texture and click copy here. And then paste this into the hover style. So just click the plus button to enable hover style, but right click and paste. Then right click again and make unique recursive. And with all the options selected, click OK. Now click the style box texture. And this will create new instances of all of our textures. So open up the atlas texture and in edit region, let's zoom out. And for snap mode, choose auto slice and then choose this option here and click close. Then scroll down to sub-region. And as you can see, this is already now set up for us, so we can just click close on that. Go back to our style and just right click and copy the hover style. Then scroll down to pressed and just activate that. And then just right click and paste that style in. But right click again and also make that unique and click OK. Then activate the style, so we load it here. And then open the atlas texture and choose edit region again and scroll out, and with auto slice still selected, just choose this option here and click close. And then we can just collapse the atlas texture. Then copy the press style, then find the focus option, and then just let's add and override that option. Right click on empty, paste, right click again and choose make unique and click OK for that. Then activate the focus style, open the atlas texture, scroll back down to region once more, and then zoom in and choose the same tile. So focused and pressed will use the same thing. So we can actually just say close as it's already selected. And for the final property, right click focus, copy the style, and for disable, let's activate that. Right click the empty option, paste, right click again and make that unique. And then click OK. Let's open that style, activate the atlas texture, and then go to edit region. Let's scroll out and we'll choose this option here. So with auto slice already selected, just choose that tile here and click close. And that will set up the disabled style. So for buttons, it's always good practice to create styles for pressed, normal, hover, focus, and disabled. So now let's test this panel UI. So with the day and night panel selected, just click run current scene to test it. And we've got the day panel, time panel, and let's just check that our button is activating so I can see the hover state. And then let's click it and it highlights, so I'm holding the mouse button down and that's pressed. And then when I move the mouse away, I've still got my focus style, which is the same as pressed. Now let's overlay a texture on this button. So click normal speed button and add a child and search for texture rect. And then in the texture, choose new atlas texture and open that. And then bring over the basic UI sprites from our assets in UI folder and just drop that into the atlas. Then edit region and zoom out, and with auto slice selected, choose this sprite here and just click close. And now let's resize the texture. So click texture rect, scroll down, and in size for X, choose 7, and for Y, choose 12. Let's just zoom in, and then in the anchor preset, choose the center option. Now the normal speed button is complete, so let's just duplicate that button and rename it the fast speed button. Then on the fast speed button, let's scroll down to transform, and in the X position, let's just reposition that button, and we'll leave the value at 27. Then for texture rect, the X is 9.5, so let's just change that to an integer value of 10. And then let's just go to texture rect back on the normal speed button and just check that. So we'll just make that 10 as well. Then for texture rect here, let's just duplicate that. And then let's reposition the arrow. So just scroll down on texture rect 2. And in the X position, let's just reposition that. And then click on texture rect and just reposition that as well. So that then centers those icons for us. Then click the fast speed button and duplicate this button again. Let's rename it and call it cheetah speed button. And let's then duplicate texture rect 2 and let's adjust the position on that. So for texture rect 2, let's just scroll down until we get to our transform. And in position, let's just move that down a little. For texture rect, let's just increase that. And then keep increasing the positions until we get them relatively center. Then, once you've centered and adjusted the positions of the textures, what we need to do is then just reposition the button. So click back on the cheetah speed button, go back to transform, and in position, let's just move that. Now click on the control which contains the buttons and just resize this. So let's just increase the X parameter until we get to 80 and then reduce this down. And that will just wrap our buttons. This now completes the UI for the day and night cycle. So let's now create a test scene so that we can then add this UI to our game screen. So I'll head over to the scenes folder, and in test folder, let's create a copy of our game screen test scene. So right click, duplicate, and call this day and night cycle, and just click duplicate for that. Let's open that test scene, and then let's just rename the scene here and call it test scene day and night cycle. And now we can add the day and night panel to our game screen. So just open the scene and then just go to scenes and UI folder, and then just drag the day and night panel into the margin container. So we just need to reposition this. So let's just go to the anchor points and choose horizontal shrink end and vertical shrink begin. Now let's just zoom in on our UI, and as you can see, the panel is just cut off from the right hand side of the viewport. So let's just head back over to the day and night panel and then just click the root node and just make sure the anchor point is the top left so that we have this anchor point here. Then click on the day panel and go to position, and on the X axis let's just reduce the position so that it moves into the negative X axis, and we'll do that at -80. So we'll just zoom in and we just line up this pixel line here and do the same for the time panel. So position on the X axis will be -80, and then for the control option here, which contains the buttons, let's just go to the transform, and for X axis do -80 on here. So we've just set that. Let's save that and then go back to game screen, and you can see now that the day and night panel is correctly positioned and the anchor point is in the right place. Then head over to test scene day and night cycle, and we'll have our panel here. So let's just run the test scene, and this has now set up our UI correctly here. We're now ready to create a global script for the day and night cycle manager. So go to scripts and globals, right click and create a new script, and call this day and night cycle manager, and click create. Open the script and then go to project settings, and under globals, let's just add that global script. So open the scripts folder in globals and then choose day and night cycle manager and open that, and then add that script and just close that. And in our script, let's begin creating some constant variables. So say minutes per day, which is an integer value, say 24 multiplied by 60. So another constant variable, minutes per hour, type of integer, and equals 60. Right, another constant variable, which is game minute duration, which is a type of float, equals tau, and that is short for 2 multiplied by pi, divided by minutes per day. Then we'll do some default parameters, so we'll have a var game speed, which is also float, and we'll just set that to 5, and say var initial day, which is a type of integer, and set that to 1. And variable initial hour, integer equals 12, variable initial minute, integer equals 30. We will like another variable called time, which is float, and we'll just set that to 0. Another variable, current minute, which is an integer, and set that to -1, or current day, which is an integer, and set that to 0. Then we'll create some signals. So we'll say signal game time, and then pass in time. Our next signal is called time tick, and we'll pass in day, which is int, hour, which is integer, and the minute as well. And for another signal, we'll call it time tick, day, and pass in day as well. And create a function called set initial time and return void, and say var initial total minutes equals initial day multiplied by minutes per day plus initial hour multiplied by minutes per hour plus initial minute. And that will set up the initial total minutes. Now let's calculate the initial time. So say time equals initial total minutes multiplied by the constant game minute duration. Then just above this method, write function and override the ready method. and then just call set initial time. Then override the process method, so function process, then say time plus equals delta multiplied by game speed multiplied by game minute duration. Then let's get our signal, game time, and emit time, and then we can subscribe to this signal. Then in our process method, we need to recalculate the time. So create a new function and call this recalculate time, and say for total minutes, which is int, equals integer time divided by game minute duration. Then for current day minutes, which is an integer, say total minutes modulus minutes per day. And for our integer was current day minutes divided by minutes per hour. And for minute, which is type integer, current day minutes modulus minutes per hour. Now that we are recalculating the time, we can now emit some of our helper signals. So say if current minute is not equal to minute, then current minute equals minute, time tick, emit, day, hour, and minute. Then say if current day is not equal to day, and just modify this here, then current day equals day, time tick day, dot emit, and then pass in day. That finishes the recalculate time function. So back in the process method, let's just call that method here. Now that our script is complete, let's go back to the day and night panel and update the labels for our day and our time here. Let's just go back to the time panel and just reset the time to midnight. And then for the day and night panel, let's attach a script and we'll save that in the Scenes UI folder. So for the first label, select label and just rename that and call it day label. And for time label, we'll just rename that as well. So click and drag the label and hold Control and create an onReady variable for the day label and do the same for the time label. Then override the ready function and let's get our day and night cycle manager and connect the signal. And we'll create a function called onTimeTick. We'll say function onTimeTick and pass in day, which is an integer, hour, which is an integer, and minute, which is an integer as well. And then just return void. Then get our day label and say text equals day space plus, and then use the string function and pass in our day. Then get the time label, text equals open quotes, and use 0 to D for the format, percentage 0 to D, and just add the percentage on the front of this. So this is a string formatter which will convert the integers to string, and then use percentage and then pass in our two variables. Then let's create some export variables. So we'll set export for normal speed, which is an integer, and set this to 5. Then at export for fast speed, which is an int, and set this to 100. And then export for cheetah speed and set this to 200. And click on normal speed button, and in Node, let's choose the pressed signal and just connect that. Just click connect, then say day and night cycle manager dot game speed equals normal speed. Then click the fast speed button, choose the pressed signal and connect that too. Click connect and copy this line and set this to fast speed. And for the cheetah speed button, choose pressed, connect the signal, click connect and copy this line once more. So now that the script is complete, let's head over to test scene day and night cycle and just run the current scene. As you can see, the day and night cycle manager is now updating the time in the UI. So let's just speed this up. We're using the fast speed and the time is now incrementing, and we should get a change in the day. So we've just gone to day 2, and then we can make this even faster. So as you can see, we've now linked up those buttons, and with those export variables, you can change those speeds. Let's just close that. Our next stage is to create a day and night cycle component, which will modulate the canvas to give a transition of color between day and night. So let's go to scene, new scene, choose other node, and search for canvas modulate and just create that. Rename the node to day night cycle component. Then save that component and place it into the scenes and components folder, and we'll just call it day night cycle component and save that. So just go to the components folder, then right click and attach script and just save the day night cycle GD script in that same folder. Let's open the script and let's give this a class name. So we're going to make a custom component for this and we'll derive from canvas modulate. So we'll give the class name day night cycle component, then create an export variable called initial day, which is of type int and a default value of 1. Now we're going to make this a setter, so we'll call set, and then I'll use initial day and just shorten this to ID. Then say initial day equals and the value that's passed into the setter. Then I'll call the day and night cycle manager and set the initial day to the value passed into the setter. And I'll call the manager again and set initial time. I'll do another export variable and call this initial hour and set the integer to 12. Then set and pass in the value IH for initial hour. Then say initial hour equals and then the value. Then I can say day and night cycle manager dot initial hour equals and the IH value. Then we can set the initial time. Then I'll export another variable, which is initial minute, integer and default value of 30. Then set and pass in the variable IM. Then say initial minute equals IM. Then call the day and night cycle manager, set initial minute to IM, and then call set initial time again. Then export another variable and call this day night gradient texture, and we'll use a gradient texture 1D. Then override the ready function and call day and night cycle manager dot initial day equals the initial day. Then day and night cycle manager dot initial hour equals initial hour. Day and night cycle manager again dot initial minute equals initial minute. Then finally day and night cycle manager dot and then set the initial time function. Then let's register to the game time signal and just connect that. And we'll call the function on game time. Let's create a new function. We'll call it on game time passing time, which is float. Then we want a variable called sample value equals 0.5 multiplied by, then say sin time minus pi multiplied by 0.5 plus 1.0. Then we want to set the color variable inside of the canvas modulate. So this is a property of this component. So say color equals, then get the day night gradient texture, access the gradient property, and then there's a method on there to sample the gradient and pass in the sample value. So the on-game time function will use the time from the day and night cycle manager and then use a sine wave function to oscillate the value between 0 and 1. Then the sample value will be used to sample the colour from the gradient texture, which will give the effect of a day and night cycle. So let's head back to the day and night cycle component, and in the day and night gradient texture, let's just create a new gradient texture 1D. And for now, I'll just leave that to black and white. Go back to the test scene day and night cycle, and then let's add our day and night cycle component to our test scene. So we'll just drag that component onto our scene. Let's go to the 2D view and then let's test the scene. Let's just speed it up. And as you can see, the time is affecting the gradient and we are getting a day and night cycle. So let's just stop that. To go back to the day and night cycle component and modify the gradient here. So open up the day and night gradient texture, then just put a color marker here and we'll set that to white. So we'll say this is the night and this is our day. So if we adjust this more to the left, we'll get less of night time. So I'm just going to put it roughly about here, and then I'm going to go and select some colors. So I've finished adding the colours and you can modify them. Let's go back to the test scene and then let's just run the test scene again and let's just speed it up. And as you can see, as we get later in the night, we've gone to night time, then back in the morning and we've got dawn. We'll just slow it down roughly in the night. So as you can see, it's darker and then it's coming back into dawn and we can just close that. So back in the day and night cycle component, you can make adjustments to the colour bars to get the desired effect for the time of day. And one last thing to test on the day-night cycle component is let's just modify the day. So we'll set this to 6, the initial hour to be 2 PM in the afternoon, and then 18 minutes past the hour. Let's go back to the test scene and then let's run that. And as you can see, we have changed the day and we've got different time as well. So you can customize this for your game. And that brings us to the end of this tutorial on how to create a day and night effect for your game. If you like what you've seen in this tutorial, please remember to hit like and subscribe to receive future updates of my other tutorials. Thank you for watching.